But as far as like war movies or military movies as a whole, so I actually, you'd said not to do any research, like don't worry about doing research, but I was kind of stuck. So I was doing some research this morning, as far as ones that I felt did a pretty decent job versus not a decent job. Um, so like, I guess just being in the military as a whole, like Jarhead, I thought that did a pretty decent job of the kind of the psychological aspects of when you're deployed. So I saw a lot of reviews for Jarhead online. Like it seemed half of them said it did a great job depicting military life, and the other half said it did a horrible job of depicting military life. So regardless of what side people are on, again, this is just my personal opinion, but like when they're deployed, just like the boredom and the anger, the frustration, just like not really being, not knowing what your job is over there. Like I get that. I've been through that. I went through that. And so to see the emotions play out in that movie, I thought it was a pretty accurate representation. There are other ones like Black Hawk Down. So that's a really good depiction of, like, I've never been in a firefight. I've never, seen combat or anything like that. But just like, I can only imagine just the experiences I have, the feelings of like despair and just feeling just like this is the worst point of your entire life. And like just engaging an enemy and your people, your friends are dying and you're trying not to die and whatnot. Like I thought the movie itself did a really good job as far as keeping that emotion throughout the entire movie. Just the feelings of just like, it's never going to get better. Like it's only getting worse. And like, as a viewer, you watch, you're like, oh my God, it never gets better. Like you think if you don't know the whole story, you're like, oh wow, this sucks. Like they're going to come save the day. They're going to get saved. No, it just keeps getting worse and worse. But what other movies? I mean, what movies off the top of your head can you think that you're trying to see?
What about the Jarhead sequels?
So I've never seen them.
I haven't seen them.
No desire to see them whatsoever.
I heard they're more go the opposite direction, like America, fuck yeah. Like they're totally different in tone and style from their early ones. But then maybe not movies in general, but do you think it's possible to depict a war without glorifying it?
Without glorifying
war? Because I think it looks exciting no matter what. But I think some of the better movies do make it look, like you said, there's despair, maybe highlight the boredom. I don't know. Is there a way to depict a war without making it
glorifying
look like, oh yeah, I want to go join the army now? Or
yeah, because with that, so you say glorifying, which means painting it in a positive light, right?
Or not positive, just making it look exciting. Because I think war, at least in broad strokes, is exciting, at least to men who like the thought of war,
yeah.
Like have like that instinct for blood. It looks exciting, but is it possible to depict the war without making it look exciting?
Yeah, so you bring up a good point when it comes to like war being exciting, whatnot. But the thing is, if you're in war, you don't want it exciting. Exciting's bad. Exciting's dangerous. Exciting means that you could die. So that, again, my personal opinion, like there are some people who are just super gung ho, and that's why they join. They want to go kill the bad guys and whatnot. More power to them. They're braver than I am. But like me personally, boring while it can suck is definitely the preferred alternative, as opposed to exciting, meaning you're constantly getting fired on, you're constantly getting bombed, all that kind of stuff. So to answer your question, is there a movie or can there be movies? I mean, I don't know. Like I even think like Forrest Gump, right? Like really one of the scenes that kind of makes your heart race a little bit is like when they're in the jungle in Vietnam and he gets bombed. That's where Bubba dies and everything like that. That's a really exciting, not like a happy scene, but it's a very exciting scene because there's so much going on. Lieutenant Dan gets his legs blown off. Gump saves everybody. So I think of that movie, and then I think of like Platoon, right? So where I feel like he just did not have a good time out there at all, and so I feel like that did a decent job. I don't say they didn't really glorify it, but I guess those that really are into like killing bad guys and whatnot, I guess it did kind of hype it up a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like a movie, if they were to do what you're asking, wouldn't be very successful because it's not exciting. Like if you're just over, like kind of like the very beginning of Full Metal Jacket after the basic training scenes, like after that sequence, like it's just they're just kind of hanging out and then the explosion goes off. But it's just like that boring in between. You can't make a movie out of that because you're not going to get an audience. It's just if it's a realistic, how do I phrase this? If it's a realistic portrayal of how, as a soldier, I would want war to go, nobody's going to want to watch that because that's boring. That's no enemy contact. That's doing our job, supporting, what we need to do without the, all the dying and the killing and the bullets flying overhead and all that kind of stuff.
I remember in Full Metal Jacket, the Joker, Matthew Modine's character, he thought he was going to stay, having to put it in the rear with the gear.
Yep.
Is that still the safest place to be?
I think it depends. I'd say if we're speaking in generalities, yes, just because of the fact that you're not going to be in the front lines per se. And so by default, yes, you're in a safer area just because you're not going to be constantly engaging, the enemy and whatnot. But if you're in a combat zone, there's always a chance. It doesn't matter if you're on the front lines or not. A bomb, aircraft could drop, a bomb on you or surprise attacks or whatever. But like, as far as usual in like established war areas of war, like when we were in Iraq, we had the base that we were on. And so, yes, being on the base, we were safer because it was a compound that was fortified all the way around. There was only one way to get on the base, and it was guarded, with the cars going through and whatnot. So obviously, yes, we were safer for sure than combat engineers or infantry that are in the streets of the cities, like day in and day out, 24/7. Like, yeah. So being in the rear with the gear in that case, yes, you're safer. But there are some places that just because you could be in just a little campground area with your gear and whatnot, and that's still basically the front lines. So to answer your question, most times, yes, if it's in an established area or a base, whatnot overseas, yes, that's going to be safer to be in the rear with